So I was just watching Kristi Noem, who's the governor of South Dakota, and is better looking than any person has a natural right to be. Having said that, it's too bad that her beauty doesn't extend to her brain. But I get so frustrated with Republicans, and I'm not talking about my friends and my relatives who are all good people, but the political class of the Republicans, and by that I include Fox News. But all these elected Republicans, look what they just did. And she was talking about this on the Meet the Press, whatever it was. It wasn't Meet, I forget which one it was. And she was one of all the Republican governors. It's like this is the Civil War all over again. We haven't moved past the damn Civil War. So all these Republican governors, which includes all the Confederate states of America, signed on to a declaration of support for the governor of Texas, because the governor of Texas has refused to obey the Supreme Court's decision regarding the right of the Texas National Guard, under the direction of the governor, to interfere with the Border Patrol, federal agents' ability to access this park and take down the razor wire. So it just gets me. Republicans are always talking about law and order and the Constitution. Law and order and the Constitution. Until they don't like the way something goes, that something doesn't go their way. So here you have the United States Supreme Court, which the solid majority of which were appointed by Republican presidents, two by Donald Trump, came down solidly on the side of the federal government, which was an obvious decision. It's the federal government's job to secure the borders. Whether you think they're doing a good job or not, that's where the Constitution leaves that power. And the power to interpret the Constitution lies ultimately solely with the United States Supreme Court. So here's this Republican Party that's always in favor of law and order and the Constitution, because they didn't like the way the decision went, coming down against the Supreme Court, coming down against the Constitution, coming down against law and order, and supporting basically a Confederate type revolt against the federal government, against the Constitution, against the United States Supreme Court, because the governor of Texas says he's going to completely disregard the Supreme Court's decision, and they're still going to use the Texas National Guard to interfere with the ability of the federal government to patrol the border. It doesn't matter whether you agree with the policy or not. This is a matter of law. This is a matter of respecting the Constitution, and this is a matter of hypocrisy. That's right. I went there. I used the H word. This is a matter of hypocrisy. And I know what you're wondering. Why haven't I taken down that damn Christmas tree? My back hurts, okay? Jeez. Why do you people always go to some irrelevancy? I'm trying to talk to you about the Constitution. It's an important matter. Our whole, we could have another civil war, and you're fixated on this pink Christmas tree. And incidentally, I didn't select pink, okay? That was Judy that did that. Craig. The burdens I carry. So, so all the Republican governors sided with the governor of the state of Texas in basically declaring that he is going to ignore the Supreme Court and the Constitution, and he's going to do whatever the hell he wants to do. And now they're upset, these Republican governors, according to Kristi Noem, who is far better looking than she has a right to be. I'd even vote for Trump if he takes her as his vice president. She's that good looking, and I'm that shallow. So, what do you mean that's no surprise? Mike, stop watching this show. Go watch another one. No, don't, because then I won't have anybody watching. So, I take it back. You can be shallow. There's nothing wrong with being shallow, but I've been known to be shallow myself sometimes. So, Kristi Noem is saying, well, what Biden administration might try to do now, and this would be outrageous if they did it, is to nationalize the National Guard. Well, here's what. little tidbit about law, because law matters. Christy, who's not a lawyer, is that the National Guards are under the ultimate jurisdiction of the federal government. Why? Because the National Guards, aka what's the one I'm looking for? The armies of the Confederacy, the state armies, the militia. That's the word I'm looking for. The well-armed militia. You know that one from the Second Amendment. These militia were states' armies. And that's one of the reasons we had the Civil War. The Second Amendment, they were armed, they were states, and they were under the control of the states, not the government, not the federal government. Well, that's changed now. They're under the control of the federal government. And when did we last see this happen? Well, in my lifetime, and I'm a lot older than most of you. No, that's not really true either. Mike, you're older than I am. So, but this happened in the civil rights, the integration of the schools. If you go to the Kennedy Museum in Massachusetts, I haven't been there many years, but the last time I was there, they had a complete reset up of the Oval Office, and they had a tape recording that had been made by Kennedy, and they play that. You put your earphones on, and you listen to this conversation, and it was between Jack Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, and the then governor of Mississippi, and it had to do with the integration of Ole Miss. And I'm trying to remember the fellow's name. Well, I'm having these lapses today. I shouldn't drink so much, or I should drink more. Anyway, so what happened was Bobby Kennedy called and says, we're nationalizing your National Guard to ensure that James Meredith is able to have an uneventful enrollment at Ole Miss. And so Bobby's talking to this guy, and he's this governor, and the governor's like really bullying Bobby around. Well, I don't know. I mean, why are you doing this? We have states' rights and this, that, and the other. And in the meantime, he doesn't know that Jack Kennedy is on the other line, extension. So all of a sudden, Jack Kennedy comes on. He says, "Governor, this is the president." And boy, that guy's tone of voice completely changed, just completely changed. And he said, "Oh, yes, Mr. President." Well, and he said, "Well, Mr. President, these people should wait." And Kennedy said, he called him the Negro. He says, "Well, just how patient should the Negro be? How long are they supposed to wait for equal rights, Governor?" And this governor, all of a sudden, he was like groveling because it was Kennedy. And Kennedy finally said, "I just want to make sure there's not going to be any trouble, because we're nationalizing I mean, they're already nationalized, but we're going to exercise our authority to tell the National Guard troops there to make sure that this integration by James Meredith is uneventful. Are we going to have your cooperation, Governor?" He said it about like that, only a little more forcefully. Kennedy could be tough when he wanted to be. Well, his thing was jovial and friendly. Kennedy had a backbone of steel. Khrushchev found that one out the hard way. So he said, "Oh yeah, I guess there'll be no problem for me, Mr. President, of course." And so what happened was there was a smooth transition. Okay, I had the same thing with George Wallace. If you remember that, same deal. Stood at us, at the gates of the university and stood there. We're not going to let these people in. So they did. Even these dyed-in-the-wool Southern Democratic segregationists, racists, when it came down to it, they did not get in the way of the federal government exercising control over the National Guard to obey, guess what, a Supreme Court order. So now we have, fast forward 250 years, and we have the governor of Texas basically stepping into the shoes of these segregationist governors and modeling after them instead of all the fine people that have gone since then, and basically saying, "I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I am telling our people, the Texas National Guard, to prevent the federal government from enforcing enforcing its patrolling and enforcement of the border. That's what I'm going to do." And so now these governors are saying, Kristi Noem, the cheerleader, "How dare this? You know what the Biden administration is up to now? They're talking about putting the National Guard under the control of the federal government." I was listening to somebody on the radio the other day on Fox News, and they were saying, "Boy, that'd be a terrible thing because these are people that live down there, and they feel an allegiance to the state, and now the federal government's going to come in there and try to take control over them, and they're going to have this. These people are going to be so conflicted, they're not going to know what to do." And Kristi Noem et al. Are encouraging the governor of Texas to stand by his determination that the federal government has no control over these people. It's entirely a matter of, we've heard that term before, since going back to before the Civil War, states' rights. We got states' rights. Well, the Constitution isn't set up that way. And if you don't like it, you should have been the Constitution. But don't talk about how you love the Constitution and you support law and order, but when it's inconvenient for you, you just give the finger to the Constitution, you give the finger to the Supreme Court, and you're basically giving the finger to the American people. So, I'm sorry I'm on a roll today, but just listening to this beautiful woman spout this garbage, it's upsetting. It's upsetting. And here it is Sunday. I'm all set to watch the Detroit Lions march on their way to the Super Bowl. That's right. You heard it here first. You can go place your bet. I think it's still time to bet. And, they're just doing it because my University of Michigan Mighty Wolverines won the Intergalactic Football Championship, and now Detroit is trying to follow suit. Let's hope they do. Yeah. And if I'm offending any of you who are Republicans, I don't care. If I'm offending any of you who are rooting for another team, I'm sorry, but that's your mistake. Au revoir. Have a good Sunday. Bye.